So let's see, where to start? So my name's Matt Sullivan. Like Jacob said, I'm the creative director for a company, a business called The Difference. And I'm going to go through what we do, but my goal is to talk about stuff that hopefully is useful to you. So please stop me, and I'm going to go through a lot of stuff, but don't hesitate to stop me and ask a question, give a thought, whatever. I'd rather this be interactive than me just talking. So, all right. So what I want to try to cover is a couple of different things along the lines of what Jacob said. So our business, in a nutshell, we help people make decisions really fast. So another way to say that is accelerated collaborative design. Basically, we help people get together and make big decisions quickly and in a really rich way. And in the process of doing that, they solve problems for their businesses. And part of accelerated problem solving is how do you get stuff out quickly? How do you get ideas out really quickly? So I'll talk about that too. But that's what I'm going to try to cover. So the company's called The Difference. We're a creative consulting company. We focus on people, strategy, and change. People, strategy, and change across all different types of organizations. And the way that we do that is through two main things. So these are fancy phrases, but I'm going to break them down. Collaborative facilitation, which just means getting people in a room together for a couple of days and putting them through a process where they design really cool stuff really quickly. That's collaborative facilitation. That's one half of our business. Not the half that I run, but it's a half that I'm very involved in. And then this is the half that I run, visual communication. So what that means is we use stories and pictures to help people communicate and to help people learn and to help people get on the same page about things. All right, so now I'll tell you what those mean. Okay, so that first half, the one on this side, so collaborative facilitation. So I'll tell you a little story. There's this architect, real guy, funny enough, architect, Matt Taylor, and his wife, Gail Taylor. She's a teacher. They were, around about 1980, they were trying to help the city of Boulder with an affordable housing project. They were having a really hard time because they were trying to design all of this stuff, all these new homes, but basically what ended up happening was Matt was in the center of it all, and he was trying to coordinate all these different stakeholders, architects, engineers, city planners, all different types of people. He was the funnel point, and he was finding that it didn't work. So he wanted something different. So his wife, an educator, they started to think, well, what could we do differently here? And they started to apply educational principles and collaboration principles. So, all of this sort of this heading toward, this is often how businesses try to solve problems too. And maybe architects too. I don't know, you gotta tell me. But one person in the middle trying to coordinate a lot, or maybe one organization in the middle. So they realized they needed something different. So what they did was very simple. They just started grabbing people from all of these different groups and bringing them together into a room and saying, what do we do? How do we solve this? Everything we need to know is in this room right now. We have all the right people. So how do we solve this problem? And let's get together and let's talk about it and let's design together. So that's what they did. Not only that, they started to bring other stakeholders too. So not just architects, not just engineers, but how about the people that are going to live in these houses? How about people who've done it before in other cities? They've started bringing all these experts together. And then they realized that they needed to not just put them in a room together, but put them through a process. So you can't just stick them in a room and hope for the best. You've got to put them through a process. So they decided to design a process. And that's what they did. So all these people in a room, 3 solid days, 3 hard days, like 10-hour days. They put them through a process, and I'll talk about that process in a minute. And then what they got out of that turned out to be pretty astounding. So what they got was this stuff over here. They got shared design principles. Everybody came out with the same basic orientation points on the compass. They came out understanding each other's requirements. You're a plumber, you need to know what I need as an electrician, or you need to know what the homeowner is going to need. And so all of that stuff got put on the table. So now everybody understood it, and everybody was on board with it. So not only did you get good design, but you got brand new ideas, a lot of what ifs, a ton of inspiration. You just cram all these people together, and they're going to come up with some pretty cool cool stuff. And then one of the best outcomes is all of these people are now champions of this because they designed it together. So all of these people are going to go back to their organizations, their architecture firm, their engineering firm, the other residents of this soon-to-be community, and they're excited about it. They designed it themselves and they designed it together. So you can see maybe where this is heading. Matt and Gail designed this for architecture, and then they realized that it was broadly applicable to businesses too, because businesses can be really bad at solving problems, really bad. So a lot of times the way that it happens is you've got a typical structure in a business. You've got your executive leadership, you've got your senior leaders, managers, all the way down to the people on the ground, doing a lot of the hard work. So a company like this, you need them. Let's say that executive leader wants to design a new strategy for the whole company, 20,000 person organization. So one way to do it is him or her and one or two of these people, they get in a room together and they design everything, and then they say to the 20,000 people, this is where we're going. And what do you get?
Chaos.
Yeah, chaos. What else? Why do you get chaos?
Bad solutions.
Yeah, why bad? Wait, first, why chaos?
It's not a distributed system.
Yeah.
Everybody's not on the same page.
Yeah, you're being told. You're getting told, here's where we're headed. And then why bad design?
Because they don't have the big picture.
Yeah, they don't know anything. They don't know what these people know, right? So again, you can see where this is headed. So what Matt and Gail did was they applied those same principles to a business. They started grabbing people from all throughout the organization, and then also brought in subject matter experts and people who had done it in other businesses and consultants and all these people. Crammed them in a room together for 3 days and put them through a process. Lo and behold, they got tremendous results. And this was 1980, so this was 34 years ago. So this spawned this whole new way of problem solving for businesses. And that's where our business comes in. This is one of the things that we do, is we deliver these 3-day crazy intensive workshops to help businesses solve problems. It could be 10 people, it could be, the biggest one I ever did was for FedEx, and I think it was 900 people. It was crazy. It was really crazy. It was fun. So the design shops, so they're called design shops, these 3-day things, right? And this is basically how they work, okay? So 3 phases, 3 days, 3 phases, 1 phase basically per day. Scan, focus, and act. Okay, so typically, when you got a problem, a lot of times what people do is they go straight for solving the problem. So we need a new strategy. Well, let's just sit down and design a new strategy. So that's one way to do it. What Matt and Gail said was, let's try something different. Let's, they liken it to like a rubber band or an airplane on a runway. So a rubber band, you pull it back, you pull it back, you pull it back, and then you build up, I don't know, you guys know the physics, you build up something, tension, right? And then you let it go and the thing just flies, right? So they said, let's spend these 2 days pulling back the rubber band, and then let's let it go. So the way that this works is on the scan phase, they don't let their participants design anything that basically has much to do with their problem. What they do is they load them up with learning. So on your first day of a design shop, you might sit there and read about bees, or Mongols, Attila the Hun, or you might read about how cities change over time, or you might read about 100 different things. And what you're doing is you're sort of loading up on the way that other systems work, and you're trying to learn from them. So you spend like a whole day doing this kind of stuff. So what happens at the end of that first day, people start getting a little tense, because they're taking 3 days out of their job. Their boss told them, go to this thing and design the answer to this giant problem for our company. So they get to the end of the first day, and they're a little tense. We have them do skits. Like, we have them put on costumes and like act out the culture of their company and like that, which they do amazing things with it. So then the second day, they come in, they figure, okay, cool. Now at least I get to design this stuff. But we still don't let them do it. So the second day, we start putting them through scenario planning. And what that means is we change the game. So what would be an example? For like the affordable housing project. So we might say, okay, now you get to design the answer to this, but guess what? Your budget got cut in half. Or let's say money's not an issue. You have all the funding, you have all the money in the world to design the answer. Or you got to do it in a completely different location, or whatever. We break the boundaries of the problem, and they start designing solutions to it. So what's the point of that? Anybody have a sense of what's the point of that?
Prototyping.
Say it again.
Sorry. It's prototyping.
Meaning?
Try things out.
Yeah.
See if it's going to fail.
And what can you learn from that?
What works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you can get rid of the bad stuff.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. What were you going to say?
It's more of a drive on the team to figure out who's good at what and how to get stuff done.
That's a good way to say it too. You definitely learn a ton about your coworkers in these types of sessions. But yeah, a lot of what you're doing in a phase like the focus phase is you're creating options. You're thinking way outside of the boundaries to just see what's possible. Then they finish that day, and now they're really freaked out because they actually still have not designed the answer to their problem that their boss sent them to design the answer to. So then they come in the third day, and they are, they're tense. They're really tense. But that's exactly how we want them, because now the rubber band is pulled way back. And then at the morning of that day 3, then we let them go. And we really turn the process over with them. And we say, okay, look, we've put you through 2 days of like madness. So what do you need to do to design the answer to this question? And we put them in this big circle. It could be 100 people sitting in a circle trying to figure out, what is it we need to design today, in 1 day, in 8 hours, 9 hours. And they start throwing all kinds of stuff out because now they know. Now they've done 2 days worth of exploring, and now they know what they need to do. And they throw it all out, and then they sign up for teams, and I'm going to go work on this, and you're going to go work on that. And then they just go hit it. And at the end of that day, what they come up with is, I've done 300 of these, and I've never seen it not work. And every time what they come up with is extraordinary results. And they keep coming back for more. So that's design shops in a nutshell. I'll save time to not talk about this, but this is basically about, you got to have the right stuff. You got to have the right people in the room. You got to have the right information in the room. You got to have the right knowledge in the room. You got to have the right process, which is what I just talked through. And then you got to have the right environment. And the environments that we do these in are these big, giant, kind of like this, big, giant open rooms, whiteboards all over the place where people are scribbling ideas up all over the place. And then there's this team that supports it called knowledge workers. And actually that's where I got my start, was being a knowledge worker. Way back, I was like 23 years old and started doing this stuff. So that's design shop. That's one side of our business. And this is what it looks like. This is a bunch of people in a ballroom. But they're there for 3 days, whiteboards all over the place. We bring in plants, we rent plants. Why do we rent plants? Anybody? Yeah, that's good. That's cool. Why else? Oxygen in here. Why else? Come on, guys.
Just atmosphere.
Atmosphere, yeah. It's nice. It just feels nice. We also put toys around and books. Why do we do that?
Ease the tension.
Totally. Ease the tension. And it's fun. I mean, like, I'm sitting up here with this thing in my hand because I have to have something to do with my hands. So we put like all these puzzles around and stuff, and you'll see like these, executives from the top companies in the world sitting there with this little puzzle, They just need something to do with their hands. And it helps them think. And they have fun. So that's what it looks like. And so then this leads me into the second half, which is that there's also a huge element of visuals in these workshops. And this is where I started. So where I started in this was I would come to these meetings as part of the team. So I was living in Chicago. I was building scenery. And that was okay, but I wanted something different. And I heard of a friend of mine who was, all I knew was that she stood in a room and she drew people's conversations, and she was getting paid well for it. And I said, that sounds pretty cool. So I went and checked it out. And they hired me as a contractor, and they threw me in one of these sessions, and this guy named Peter, who was a real mentor of mine, he did this thing where he had a handful of markers, and literally it's all you guys are talking, and he's up there depicting the conversation. And he did that for like 45 minutes, and then he came over to me and he handed me the markers, and he said, go try it. And that was how I got started. That's called scribing. And visuals are always a huge part of these sessions, and the reason for that is then what leads me to this other half of our business. This is the half that I run here in Bozeman. So, okay, so visual communications. First of all, I'll stop there. Any questions or thoughts about the world of collaborative facilitation? Yeah?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you may get to this, but I was sort of thinking about the nature of the problems.
Yeah.
And then what happens to these problems once you do this.
Great.
Are you going to address that down the road? Or?
I don't think I have it in here, but it's a really important question, so I'll talk about it right now. So, the nature of the problem, meaning what types of problems do people come, do people use this for?
You need an idea team to have smart people figure out what the problem actually is.
Yes, great. Yes. So, okay, I'll try to make this brief, but it's a critical question to making these work. So, these design shops don't just happen, right? For months leading up to them, there's a small team of 10 people from that company working with us to design this thing. And they're a cross-representation of the company. Usually they're people that are pretty high up, but they're the ones that really know the business in and out. And we're working with them to prep this thing. And we're defining the problem, and we're designing the session. Every one of these sessions is different. And we're making sure that it's a good fit. So if you go to this, if we don't have these elements, we don't do it. And there's another one, actually, there's a fifth one, which is you got to have the right problem. So it's really broadly applicable. I mean, we've done hundreds of these across lots of different types of problems, but it does have to be the right kind of problem. And it's got to be the type of problem where you need these things, where you need a whole bunch of people that can design it together. And it's like, in a way, what we say is the bigger the problem, the better. What we don't want is some little problem, and then we just waste 100 people's time. So we work with that, they're called sponsor team, for months leading up to this. And then we do the design shop. Then, you have a good design shop, and people design lots of great stuff, and if they don't go do anything with it, it's a waste of time. So that's actually, in a way, where the visual communications business came from. Because what we were finding was we had no contact really with the clients after they did this session. They just go, here's your massive stuff, set of stuff that you designed, and you're on your own. So we started the visual communications business partially to help people come out of those sessions and communicate what they designed out to the other 10,000 people in the organization. And one of the keys is you have to communicate it in a way that doesn't feel one-sided. You have to communicate it in a way where people feel like, I can see myself in this, I get why this change applies to me, I get why I should care, I get why I want to be a part of it, and like that. So, does that partially get to your question? Okay, did you have something?
Yeah, what makes a problem the right kind of problem?
Yeah,
Or the wrong kind of problem?
Yeah, let's see, let me answer that. Mostly it's what I said, it needs to be big. I mean, if you're going to do it for a big organization, it needs to be a big problem where you couldn't really solve it well any other way, other than bringing all these people together. And a lot of times that ends up being strategy. Like companies have all different levels of the company, and the sort of the strata of the company that really defines where it's going is the strategy, right? And so, if it's like a big strategic problem, like, our numbers are down and the market is changing, and where are we going to take this company over the next 5 years so that we survive? That's a good one. Or, you guys know what SAP is? It's really boring. SAP is software. It's just the software that companies use to run their companies. So if you sit in a cubicle all day and you're punching numbers, you're probably in SAP. But SAP is a product. It's just like Microsoft Office. It's something that a company buys, installs, implements, and trains on. So, switching a massive manufacturing company over to SAP is a huge undertaking. It's just huge because, there's already software in place and people are used to using it and they hate that software, but it's what they know and like that. So, doing something like implementing SAP across a 10,000 person organization, that's a good one. Because then you got to get the right people in the room to talk about requirements and talk about technological specs and all this kind of stuff. Does that help? Sort of. Yeah. The wrong problem is a small one that a small group of people could solve on their own. for this. You don't need it. You don't need this for that, you know. Yeah.
Would you love to comment?
Yeah, please.
Basically, my philosophy is, have you ever studied wicked problems?
No.
There's a great study called Wicked Problems, and you know, the small problems will eventually lead to the big ones. So I
Yes.
think like defining it as right or wrong, it will always lead you down the path to the bigger issue, because you're breaking down that problem and you're analyzing it, and in a sense, it leads you to the big issue.
Yes.
So
A lot of it has to do with what's the underlying problem. You know, but
Do you generally find that when you change a bigger problem, you have unexpected results in areas where you didn't foresee change?
like,
Like, oftentimes there are small problems which people
Yeah.
are visible to, an office environment.
Yeah.
And they're actually a result of a large problem.
yes.
Which is what you were describing earlier. When you
Yeah.
fix that large problem, do you guys ever hear back about results of them fixing smaller problems in the
Right.
process?
We honestly don't get to hear back a whole lot about anything. We stick with these clients. I mean, we do repeat sessions with clients, but a lot of times they just sort of do it and head on out. That said, I know that the answer to your question is yes, because yes, those things do get sussed out and solved by virtue of them solving these big wicked problems. And a lot of times those end up being cultural. A lot of times they end up being cultural problems. A lot of times it's, you and I just talk about what you do and what I do. And now we understand each other's roles quite a bit better. So a lot of that stuff, I guarantee, does get alleviated, just. All right, so I should keep rolling through this stuff here. Okay, so visual communication. So I'll just give you a little bit of, so this is from the internet, so I cannot substantiate this, but I found it on the internet, and so I'm going to show it to you. So this is what the internet tells me. Visuals express ideas quickly in a snapshot. I agree. 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual. So does that make sense? Visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text. And don't think that the irony is not lost on me that I put this on a slide with just text. But I ran out of time. But this is what our business is built on. The fact that I just intuitively know that these are somewhat true is how our business was built. So visual communications, what does that mean? What do we do? So I told you earlier about people, strategy, and change. So within an organization, how do you help them deal with challenges around people, strategy, and change? So what our visual communications business does is we help people deal with challenges using story. So story is king for us, and I'll show you what I mean. So we do a lot of different stuff. I have a team of extraordinary illustrators and designers and editors and creatives at my studio. They make these things. They make animations. These things are called journey maps, which I'll show you. Graphic capture, which is the thing where you stand up at the wall and draw, and I'll show you a little bit of that. We make infographics. We make interactive web environments, all this stuff. I don't describe us as a design studio. Yes, we design stuff, but I describe us more as being communications partners. We help people communicate. So, what does that look like? All right, so you guys know the Red Cross? Okay, so Red Cross contacted us once, and they were apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently the way they labeled their blood bags, the black bags of blood, was really antiquated, and it was really backwards, and it led to all kinds of problems, and batches of blood spoiling and not getting where you want it to go. And apparently the rest of the world has this fantastic system that's very efficient, and we're behind the times. So they were, Red Cross is huge, massive organization, and they were coming up to speed on how you label your blood bags. Well, what do you got to do if you change the way you label the blood bags? You got to let everybody know about it, and you got to do it in a way that makes them interested in it, makes them care, and makes them not feel like you're making them wrong. So, anybody ever seen I'm Just a Bill? What are those called? Schoolhouse Rocks. Yes? So I'm just a bill, just an ordinary bill, sitting on Capitol Hill. Yes, maybe. All right. I'll sing the whole thing. So we had this idea. Like, we could have just illustrated the new process. Here's the new labels. Here's how you stick it on the bag. Here's blah, blah, blah. But we wanted to do something a little different, so we created this character. He doesn't have a name. If he did, anyway, we never named him. But that's him, and he's a talking blood bag. And we made an animation of this talking blood bag. And, of course, at some point he rode a motorcycle. In the piece. I got to voice it. So somehow it turns out that usually I do the voices for these animations. And I don't know why, but it turns out a blood bag has sort of a Texas accent. Is what it is. So anyway, we made this animation of this talking blood bag walking you through this new process and telling you why it's going to change how we serve, patients and people who are really in need of blood. And it was that was what they used to let however many people know that this process is changing, followed by lots of training and so on. But this was sort of the thing that broke the seal, and it went over really well.